Knock came at 6:47 in the morning. I know the exact time because I'd been awake since 5, sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee that had gone cold, staring at the parking lot 3 floors below. I'd had a feeling. Not the anxious, spiral kind I used to get before family dinners. Something quieter, more certain. Like when you know a storm is coming before the clouds even show up. The knock came again, harder. Then my brother's voice, muffled through the door. "Vivian, open up. We know you're in there." I set down the mug. "My name is Vivian Okafor. I'm 32. I work in logistics management. I've driven the same secondhand Accord for 4 years, and for most of my adult life, I believed that keeping the peace was the same thing as keeping my family. I was wrong about that. It took a tow truck, a set of car keys, and a very patient detective named Hargrove to show me exactly how wrong. But let me start with the knock. I walked to the door in my socks and looked through the peephole. My brother was front and center, shoulders back, the look on his face he always gets when he thinks he's already won something. My mother stood slightly behind him, arms crossed, wearing the beige cardigan she puts on when she needs to look reasonable. My father was at the edge of the frame, not quite meeting anyone's eyes. I took a breath. Then I opened the door. The three of them looked at me the way people look at a problem they've already decided to solve. "We need to talk about the car," my brother said. He didn't say good morning. He didn't ask if he woke me. "We do," I agreed. That threw him off. He'd expected resistance at the door, some version of me stepping back, asking what was going on, giving him room to run his script. Instead, I stepped aside and let them in. What they didn't see when they walked past me was the folder on the kitchen table. Thick, cream-colored, held shut with a binder clip. 5 years of bank statements, payment confirmations, insurance documents, and one notarized letter from the dealership's financing department. My name was on every single page. My brother's name was on the title. That was the mistake I'd made at 27, and it had taken me 5 years to untangle it legally and 3 conversations with a lawyer to understand I actually could. "Sit down," my mother said, like it was her apartment. "I'm fine standing," I said. She looked at my father. He looked at the floor. My brother got right to it. "The car is in my name. That means legally it's mine, and you know it. I've been patient, Vivian. But I need it. I've been meechant, Vivian. But I need it. I have meetings. I have clients. You have a suspended license," I said. Silence. "I checked," I added, not unkindly, 3 months ago." His jaw moved, but nothing came out. "Here's what happened, and I'll tell it straight because it still makes me tired to think about. When I was 27, I'd saved enough for a used car, nothing fancy, just reliable. My brother had recently gotten the promotion and convinced my parents, who in turn convinced me, that putting the car in his name would help him build credit. He'd just gotten the job, he had the right kind of income documentation, and the financing rate would be lower. It would be temporary, everyone said. Just until he got established. Just a favor for the family. I wrote every check. I made every payment. I scheduled every oil change and paid every registration fee and every insurance premium for 5 years. My brother drove the car exactly 4 times. Once when I let him borrow it for a date. Twice when I was out of town. And once when he backed it into a mailbox and didn't tell me until I found the dent myself. 18 months ago, he started making noises about the car being in his name. At first it was jokes, then suggestions. Then, at my cousin's graduation party last spring, in front of everyone, he announced that he was finally going to take back his car since he'd gotten his license reinstated. He had not, in fact, gotten his license reinstated. But nobody at the table knew that except me. My mother had laughed her soft, agreeable laugh. My father had nodded. My aunts had smiled like this was just brothers and sisters being brothers and sisters. And I had sat there with a paper plate of potato salad on my lap, feeling something in me go very, very quiet. That was the night I stopped waiting for things to fix themselves. "The title says your name," my brother said now in my kitchen. "That's all that matters." I opened the folder. "Actually," I said, "let me show you what else matters." I laid the documents out one by one. Bank statements going back to 2019, every payment highlighted. The insurance policy with my name as primary, the dealership letter confirming the originating buyer's identity, And at the bottom, the one I was proudest of, a court order filed 6 weeks earlier granting a title transfer to my name based on proof of sole financial responsibility. My brother picked it up. Read it. Put it down. You can't just. I already did, I said. It was finalized 3 weeks ago. The DMV has the updated records. The car is legally mine now. My mother's voice went sharp. Vivian, you went behind our backs. I went to a lawyer, I said, because no one was listening when I talked. We're your family. Her voice cracked on the word, right on cue. You don't lawyer up against family. I looked at her for a long moment. She was not wrong that I loved her. She was very wrong about what love was supposed to cost. I paid for that car every month for 5 years, I said, keeping my voice level. I missed my friend's bachelorette trip because I needed that payment money. I skipped the dentist for 8 months because the registration fee and the insurance premium hit the same week as rent. I asked twice to have the title moved to my name and was told to be patient. So yes, I went to a lawyer. My father finally spoke. You embarrassed your brother. I turned to look at him. He still wasn't quite meeting my eyes. Dad, I said. He was going to take my car. Nobody answered. They left 20 minutes later. My mother cried in the doorway. My brother didn't say goodbye. My father paused on the threshold like he wanted to say something and then decided not to. When I closed the door, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the particular exhaustion of finally saying the true thing out loud after years of swallowing it. I went back to the kitchen and poured the cold coffee down the sink and made a fresh cup. By noon, the messages started. My mother first. 3 texts in a row. You've always been the dramatic one. Your brother is devastated. Please call me before this gets worse. Then an aunt I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Honey, I heard what happened. Your brother is really struggling right now. Can't you just let this go? Then my brother, 1 line, you'll regret this. I put my phone face down on the counter and finished my coffee standing at the window, watching the parking lot. My car was down there, right where I'd left it. A white Accord with a small scratch above the left rear wheel. Well, that I'd gotten from a shopping cart in February. Mine. That evening my neighbor from down the hall knocked with a container of leftover soup. Her name is Bet. She's 60-something and has 2 rescue cats and an opinion about everything, and she is one of the only people in my life who has never once asked me to make myself smaller. You look like someone who won a fight and doesn't feel like celebrating, she said. Something like that? She handed me the soup. Win is a win. Feel it later if you need to. I thanked her. After she left, I sat on my couch and let myself be quiet for a while. No podcast, no TV, no scrolling. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of the city and the slow unwinding of something I'd been clenching for a very long time. I thought about the first time I made a car payment. 27 years old. So proud of myself for being responsible. So happy to help the family. So sure that the arrangement was temporary. I thought about sitting at that graduation party with potato salad on my lap. I thought about calling the lawyer, which had taken me 2 weeks of almost dialing before I actually went through with it, because part of me kept thinking, surely it wouldn't come to that. Surely they would listen if I just explained it one more time. They hadn't. But a judge had. The next morning I got a call from my father. Not a text. A call. I answered on the 3rd ring. Your mother hasn't slept, he said. I'm sorry to hear that. Vivian. He paused. He had a habit of saying my name when he was searching for the next sentence. Your brother needs that car. His situation right now. Dad, I know his situation. I've been watching his situation for 5 years. The answer is no. Another pause. He's your blood. So am I said. The silence that followed was the loudest one we'd ever shared. I didn't fill it. Think about what you're doing to this family, he finally said. I've been thinking about it for 5 years, I told him. I've made my decision. I heard him breathe out. It wasn't angry, exactly. It was something more like resignation, which in its own way was harder to hear. But I held on. I love you, Dad, I said. That's not what's in question. He hung up without saying it back. Cut stung. I let it sting for exactly as long as it needed to. Then I washed my breakfast dishes and got ready for work. Tuesday, a cousin called to inform me that my brother had taken to posting about family loyalty on social media. Nothing was names, just vague captions about betrayal and people who forget where they come from. His friends filled the comments. A few of them were people I'd known since high school. I read through it once, put my phone in my desk drawer, and went back to the quarterly report I was supposed to finish by 3. That afternoon, my coworker Marcus, the actual Marcus, not related to this story, just a person who sits across from me and sometimes brings donuts on Fridays, noticed I was quieter than usual. "Everything good?" "Family stuff," I said. He nodded in the way people nod when they know not to push. Then he slid a glazed donut across the desk. It helped, a little. Wednesday I printed copies of everything: the court order, the title transfer, the DMB confirmation. I put them in a separate folder and kept it in my bag. I'd had a lawyer review them 3 weeks prior, and she'd told me straight: the transfer was clean, the documentation was solid, and if anyone tried to dispute it, they were welcome to try. They were not going to try. But I kept the folder anyway. Facts had become a kind of comfort. Thursday evening, a text from my mother. "Family dinner Sunday. Your father expects you there." I stared at it for a while. I did not respond. Friday came with a phone call from my brother. I let it go to voicemail and listened to it on my commute home. His voice was measured in a way that didn't quite hide what was underneath it. "Vivian, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Come to dinner Sunday. We can talk this out like adults. Nobody has to make this bigger than it is." A pause. "The title situation is just paperwork. We both know the car has always been a family thing." I deleted the voicemail. Sunday, I drove to my parents' house. I know that probably sounds like a surrender. It wasn't. I thought about it for 3 days and decided that avoiding the conversation indefinitely wasn't the same as having won it. I wanted them to hear me in person. I also, honestly, missed my mother's cooking in the complicated way you miss things that are wrapped up in other things, and I am trying to be honest here about all of it. The house smelled like pot roast and something was bubbling on the stove. My mother looked at me when I walked in, and her face did 5 different things in 2 seconds. My brother was already at the table. My father stood at the counter. An aunt I actually liked had been invited, I suspected as a buffer. We ate. We talked about other things for 20 minutes, the ritual of it, the weather, and my cousin's new job, and whether the neighbors were ever going to fix their fence. And then, because it had to happen eventually, my brother set down his fork. "I want to have an honest conversation," he said. "Great," I said. "Me too." He looked at my father. My father looked at my mother looked at me. "The car," my brother said, "has always been a family arrangement. We all agreed to that. I agreed to put it in your name temporarily," I said. "That's different. You agreed to let me help you." I tilted my head. "You helped me get a lower financing rate. I helped you build your credit. And I paid every payment for 5 years. I don't think we're describing the same arrangement." His voice tightened. "You went to a court. You made this legal when it didn't need to be. It needed to be legal when you started talking about taking it." "I wasn't going to take it. You told 30 people at Rachel's graduation that you were." The aunt I liked glanced between us. My mother pressed her lips together. "Your brother has had a hard year," my father said. "I know," I said. "I'm sorry about that. I genuinely am. But a hard year doesn't entitle him to a car I paid for." My brother's chair scraped back slightly. "You've always kept score. That's your problem. Everything is a transaction with you." I felt the familiar pull, the one that used to make me soften, apologize, reframe, take up less space. I took a breath instead. "If keeping records of what I paid for is keeping score," I said evenly, "then I'd rather be a scorekeeper than forget that I worked 2 overtime shifts a month to make those payments." Silence sat down at the table with us. My mother's voice, when it came, was soft in the way that meant it wasn't. "You're tearing this family apart over a car." "I'm not," I said. "I'm keeping something that belongs to me. Those are different things." She shook her head slowly. "You've changed." "Yeah," I said. "I think so." After dinner, my aunt found me in the kitchen rinsing plates and touched my elbow. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "You did the right thing. Just so you know." I nodded. "They love you," she said. "They're just not good at it right now." "I know," I said. "I love them too. That's what makes it hard." She squeezed my arm and went to find her coat. On the drive home, I didn't play music. I just let the city move past the windows and thought about what my aunt had said. "They love you. They're just not good at it right now." I've been telling myself a version of that for years, using it as a reason to wait, to forgive preemptively, to absorb costs that weren't mine to absorb. At some point, the love in a sentence like that stops being the most important word. The following week was quieter. My brother didn't call. My mother sent one text that was mostly scripture and I read it once and put it down. My father sent nothing, which was somehow both the worst and the most honest response. I went to work. I drove my car. I took it through the car wash for the first time in 4 months, which sounds like a small thing and was also somehow exactly the right thing to do. Standing in the bright mechanical noise of it, watching the soap slide down the windshield, thinking, mine, mine, mine. Bet knocked on my door Thursday with a plate of banana bread and the information that she'd seen a white Accord in my spot and was glad it was still there. I was worried they'd tried to tow it, she said. I laughed, which surprised me. They didn't, I said. But I'd thought about that. I called the parking office and made sure my name was on the spot registration. She looked at me with approval. Smart girl. I had a good lawyer, I said. Even smarter. She stayed for tea, and we talked about her cats and her daughter who lived in Portland and the leak she'd been trying to get the landlord to fix for 6 weeks. Normal things, small things. I was grateful for every single one of them. 3 weeks later, I got an email from my company's leadership program. I'd submitted a proposal for a cross-departmental logistics project in February, mostly as an exercise, not really expecting anything. The email said my proposal had been selected for development and they'd like me to lead it. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went for a walk because I needed to do something with the feeling and sitting still wasn't it. I walked 6 blocks, turned around, and walked back. By the time I got to my building, the feeling had settled into something I could hold, a quiet, solid satisfaction. The kind that doesn't need an audience. I called Bet. She made a sound like a small explosion of happiness. I did not call my mother. Not that night. But 2 weeks later, when the project was officially announced internally and a few people said congratulations in the hallway and my manager stopped by my desk to say she was glad they'd taken a chance on me, I sat with the thought of my family for a while, not with bitterness, more with a kind of ache. The one that comes when you finally get something you worked for and the people you wanted to share it with aren't quite reachable. I sent my mother a short message. I have some good news. I'll call this week. She responded within 2 minutes. Please do. I miss her voice. We talked on a Tuesday. It was careful and imperfect and nothing got fully resolved, but she asked about the project, and she listened while I explained it. And she said I'm proud of you at the end in a way that sounded like she meant it and was also maybe a little bit sorry. We miss you, she said. I know, I said. I miss you too. Your brother, Mom, I said gently. Not tonight. A pause. Then, okay. Not tonight. It wasn't a fixed thing. I want to be clear about that. Families like mine don't get fixed in a single conversation or a legal document or a dinner where someone finally says the true thing. What happened was something smaller and more real, a beginning, maybe, or the end of something that needed to end so something else could start. I still drive the white Accord, still have the scratch above the rear wheel well from the February shopping cart. Every month I make the payment on time because it's my payment to make, and sometimes when I turn the key I think about 27-year-old me who signed those financing papers thinking she was doing something good for her family and was, in her way, but not in the way she thought. She was building credit, all right, just not for anyone else. A few weeks ago, Bet stopped me in the hallway and asked how things were going with the family. Better, I said. Slowly. Slowly is fine, she said. Slowly is fine, she said. Slowly means it's real. I've been thinking about that since. All the things I tried to rush, the resolution, the forgiveness, the return to normal, and how none of them moved until I stopped pushing and let them find their own speed. You can't force a family to see you clearly. You can only stop arranging yourself to fit the version of you they've decided on. I'm done arranging. Last Saturday I took myself to the farmer's market 3 neighborhoods over, the one I'd always meant to go to and never had time for. I bought tomatoes and a bunch of sunflowers and a small jar of local honey, drove home with the windows down, sunflowers in the back seat, the city moving past in that particular way it does on a slow weekend morning when nothing is urgent. Parked in my spot. Carried everything upstairs. Put the sunflowers in a glass on the windowsill where the light hits them in the afternoon. Sat down with my coffee and just looked at them for a while. Mine. I think about what would have happened if I'd opened that door angry. If I'd yelled, cried, threatened, if I'd matched the energy my brother brought when he showed up assuming the thing I'd built was already his. I used to do that. Meet intensity with intensity, hurt with hurt, and then spend the next 3 days replaying everything I said and wishing I'd been quieter, cooler, more prepared. What changed wasn't that I stopped feeling things. I felt everything that morning. The shaking hands, the dry mouth, the old familiar pull of wanting to just fix it, hand something over, make the discomfort stop. What changed was that I'd done the work before the knock came. The lawyer, the court filing, the folder sitting on my kitchen table like a quiet answer to a question nobody in my family had thought to ask. That's the thing about preparation. People mistake it for coldness. My brother called me calculating. My mother said I'd changed. What they were actually seeing was someone who had stopped improvising and started thinking. And thinking, it turns out, is something you can do on your own even when everyone around you is telling you there's nothing to think about. I spent a long time believing that being the responsible one was its own reward. That if I showed up, paid what needed paying, covered what needed covering, the people I loved would eventually notice and return the same. That's not cynicism talking. I genuinely believed it. And I think a lot of people do. We confuse reliability with safety. We think that because we would never take advantage of someone who trusted us, no one will take advantage of us. I learned that trust without documentation is just hope. And hope is not a legal strategy. What I want to say to anyone sitting where I sat 5 years ago, signing papers you maybe shouldn't have signed because you wanted to help someone you loved, you are not stupid for having trusted. You are not weak for having wanted things to work out. The mistake wasn't caring. The mistake was staying silent long after the situation had told you exactly what it was. My father said I was making things difficult, but things were already difficult. I was just the only one pretending otherwise, which meant I was also the only one carrying it. Bet told me once that slowly is fine, because slowly means it's real. I've turned that over a lot since then. Quick resolutions, fast forgiveness, instant family dinners where everyone pretends the last 6 months didn't happen. None of that is healing. It's just conflict management. Real change is slower and less satisfying and doesn't have a clean ending. And that's exactly how you know it's actually happening. My car is in my spot right now. White. Scratched above the rear wheel well. Mine. I earned that in more ways than one.